frequency transient spikes that are generated as the electronics are engaged. And if you look at it on a spectroscope, this is what it would look like. So you have the original 60 hertz sine wave there in black, and then you have these higher frequencies riding on top of it. Anything other than 60 hertz is considered dirty power. And so this is what it would look like. And there's a number of things in your home that will generate this. Any kind of variable speed motor, television sets, particularly plasma television, energy efficient light bulbs, the one that we're all going to be mandated to use, are generating a huge amount of dirty electricity, and I'll share some of this with you in a few minutes. Dimmer switches are notoriously bad for them. As you dim the light switch, as you begin to turn it down, that chops the sine wave, and every time there's a chopping action, it puts a spike on the line. What's particularly disturbing is that even if you clean up your own home, if you happen to be sharing a transformer with neighbors, if they have dimmer switches in their home or other products that generate dirty power, it will come into your home as well. And this can be very easily demonstrated. You can also get dirty power coming in from unfiltered broadcast antennas and cell phone antennas. And I think some of the people who are getting sick who happen to live near these antennas are getting sick not because of the radiation coming directly through the air, but because the radiation gets onto the wire that acts like an antenna and then re-radiates into the room. So you're at much higher levels from that re-radiated high frequencies than you are from things coming through the air. I'm going to start off with lighting. And I know that we're very concerned about climate change, and so governments around the world are phasing out energy inefficient light bulbs. And these include the incandescent light bulbs that many of us have been using. And what they're coming up with are fluorescent light bulbs, the curly energy efficient or more energy efficient compact fluorescent light bulbs. We conducted a study. And 83%, we had over 400 responses to this study, and we were simply asking about lighting, how people react to lighting. And we wanted them to classify themselves as being either very electrically sensitive, less sensitive, not sensitive, and people who just don't know. Out of those 400 responses, and this was from around the world, mostly from English-speaking countries, 83% of the people classified themselves as very electrically hypersensitive. And these were their responses to fluorescent lights and incandescent lights. Headaches, 75% of them said they got headaches from fluorescent lights. 24% got headaches from incandescent. That's because they're very sensitive to light as well. Eye problems, feeling unwell. These were the top 12 symptoms that seem to be quite common among people who are electrically hypersensitive. Not fitting into the top 12 category, but something that's very important for my talk today, are heart arrhythmias and skin problems. And I'm going to show you examples of both. Skin problems for the exposure to compact fluorescent light bulbs, heart arrhythmias for exposure to microwave radiation. This is a woman in the United Kingdom who happens to have lupus. She's also electrically sensitive. And indeed, some of the symptoms of lupus and electrical sensitivity are very difficult to tease apart. They overlap so much. This is what her skin looks like when she uses an incandescent light bulb for reading. And this is what her skin looked like 20 minutes after sitting about 2 feet from a compact fluorescent light bulb. She went to her dermatologist, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. They gave her all sorts of skin ointments, everything else, and then she realized that she only had this develop when she was near a compact fluorescent light bulb. And I've talked to many people who will come up to me after a lecture, and they'll show me their hand, and they'll say, you know, I have this skin problem. I don't know what to do with it. My dermatologist doesn't know what to do with it. And I say, do you have compact fluorescent light bulbs in your home? And they say yes. And I said, just turn them off or get rid of them for a week. Go back to your incandescents and see what happens. And very large percentages of those people contact me and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. My skin problem's gone. I can't believe it was the lighting in my kitchen where I spend, all of my time. So if you have patients who have skin problems that are atypical in the sense that you can't deal with them, just ask them if they have these light bulbs in their home, and if they do, it could very well be the cause of the problem. We did a study with different types of light bulbs to find out what they actually emit. And basically what we took is we took a scope meter that shows you visually, and you can calculate the intensity and the frequency of the radiation, and we measured what was coming through the wire. We wanted to find out how much dirty power it was contributing to, and what was actually coming directly through the air. And I'm going to show you what these readings look like in comparison to an incandescent light bulb. We had to do these studies in a very remote region. We did them in a rural area in Wisconsin and in another rural area in Canada where we didn't have any interference from any other source. And we didn't want to do it in a shielded lab that was, all filtered and cleaned up, because we wanted to represent what was happening in realistic environments that were otherwise clean. And what we have here is a waveform showing you in red what is coming through the wire, and in blue what is coming through the air. Now, you can recognize here the 60 hertz sine wave. The red would also have that 60 hertz sine wave, but we just put a filter on it to get rid of the 60. So all we could see was the dirty electricity represented in a straight line. We then took, and this was true whether this light bulb was on or off. Incandescent light bulbs do not radiate radio frequency microwave radiation, and they do not put dirty power on the wire. They're very clean electromagnetically. And this is what a GE compact fluorescent light bulb looked like that had a quarter of the energy. You can see the red coming through the wire, very high spikes on it that's cyclic, and you can see the blue showing what's coming through the air. And this was only when the light bulb was on. Now, there's ways of measuring dirty electricity that don't require the use of expensive oscilloscopes that cost, several $1,000s and require a technician to interpret. There's something called a microsurge meter, and this is what it looks like. I actually have it plugged in here right now, and I'm just going to plug in a filter. And I'll tell you about that filter in a minute. I wanted to do that to minimize my own exposure up here. The dirty electricity in the clean environment was 65, and we call them GS units. They're artificial units that have been designed that we can now associate with health. And when we turned on just one compact fluorescent light bulb, it jumped to about 300 GS units. We had light bulbs that went over 1,000 GS units. And people who happen to buy these light bulbs put them everywhere in their home because they want to be environmentally conscious. They're actually doing damage to their health in most cases. Now, I mentioned that you can filter dirty power, and I've done a lot of research on the filtering of it. And this is what the filter looks like. It's just a little box. And if we plug in one filter with this light bulb, this is what the waveform looks like. And so you can see it's cleaned up almost everything on the wire. It actually made it better than it was before. Went from 300 down to 26 GS units. And you can see even the amount coming through the air, because some of that coming through the air is actually coming off the wire, not just the light bulb. And the research that we've done, and there's been a little bit of research done in the former Soviet Union looking at these high frequencies on wires. And the number that we've come up with that seems to be relatively healthy. In the former Soviet Union, they came up with a number of 50. In our studies showing that 40 really makes is really critical for improving someone's health. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go out and buy these energy-efficient light bulbs and then purchase filters and plug them in everywhere. That doesn't make any sense to me. Really, we've got some wonderful technology coming down the road, and that's called a special type of CLED. And C stands for clean LED, light-emitting diode light bulbs. Right now, they're still a little bit too expensive. The quality of the light is not as good for some of them, but they're much more energy efficient than compact fluorescent light bulbs are, and they don't produce dirty power. The CLEDs do not produce any dirty power. And so I'm really hoping, we're testing some of them now. Some of them are not clean, some of them are, and we're trying to figure out how to encourage the testing standards associations to actually include dirty electricity as one of the criteria for bringing these light bulbs on the market. Now, I've told you some things that might be fairly new to some of you, and very often when I do this, and I'll hopefully will be sharing information that you haven't heard of before, one of the questions is, if this were true, they would have told us. We would have known about this. And I get that all the time, and and I'm one of the they. I'm a scientist, so I am telling you. So, in a sense, I fit into that classification. But they are telling us, but we're not hearing it. For the compact fluorescent light bulbs, the fact that they make people sick is not something that we discovered. That's been known. We're just trying to figure out why they're making people sick. There are 3 groups in the United Kingdom who have come out against these compact fluorescent light bulbs. They include the British Dermatological Association, because of the example I gave you of the woman with the skin problem. They include Migraine Action. People who have migraine headaches, often the headaches will be triggered by these fluorescent light bulbs, whether they're the tube or the compact fluorescents. Usually the compact fluorescents are worse simply because you're sitting closer to them, as opposed to they're worse in their technology. And people who are prone to epilepsy will also complain not of having epileptic seizures, but of feeling unwell when they're exposed to it. And we know that these light bulbs flicker at a very high rate that our brain, our eyes can't sense, but our brain can sense. And epileptics are very sensitive to flicker. So there's at least 3 groups now in the United Kingdom coming out and opposing this, but they're receiving relatively little attention. In Canada, there's a television program called 16 by 9. It's global TV. And about a year and a half ago, they contacted me about these light bulbs because I had put things on our website. And they decided they were going to do one 8-minute episode on light bulbs. They aired this episode, and at the end of it, the reporter said, if you think you're responding to these light bulbs, simply turn them off for a week, replace them with something else, and see if your symptoms go away. They had over 400 emails and phone calls after that 1 week showing, because a lot of people did exactly that. They turned off their light bulbs, they replaced them. Their headaches went away, their back pain went away. One person actually replaced the light bulbs in her barn, where she had horses that were incredibly anxious. They were just constantly just fidgeting and moving, and there was something bothering them. She put in the incandescent light bulbs, and they calmed down completely. They were so amazed at this response that they ended up doing another 3 series on dirty power. And they're all available on the internet, so you can look at all of the episodes. They won an award for doing this investigative reporting. And so if you Google 16 by 9 global television and put in dirty electricity, you will get those 4 videos. Now, I'd also like to talk about dirty electricity in different environments. And the environment I'm most concerned about, in addition to everyone's bedroom, is the school environment, because it's our job as adults to protect children. And we're doing a lot of things that are doing just the opposite. I'm going to share with you 4 different stories of dirty electricity in schools, and they're all really quite different. The first story is of a school in Wisconsin that had something called sick building syndrome. Initially, they thought that the illnesses, the asthma, the allergies, the headaches, the migraines were due to something in the building, like chemicals in the building or mold. And so they spent the summer cleaning up the school because the teachers' union was going to file a lawsuit against the school board. They had been complaining for years, nothing happened, and they were finally going to file a lawsuit. And so the school took it seriously. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars cleaning up the school. Teachers, students came back in September, and by October they were sick. So whatever they had cleaned up was not the cause of the sick building syndrome. And they called in an electrical expert who does work on power quality, mostly looking at industrial sector and farms rather than school environments. But he came in, measured the building using the oscilloscope that I showed you earlier, and he found that there was very high levels of dirty power in the school. And he's one of the co-designers of the filters that I used to test what it would do to the light bulbs. And so he plugged in filters in the school, and within a matter of a few weeks, people were feeling a lot better. And what was really amazing is that the school nurse, whenever you take medication as a child in the school, you have to get it from the school nurse, and they jot down that,